The Laughing Academy. Lieutenant Mara Decker stood at attention beneath the vaulted glass ceiling of the Coalition Academy for Planetary Defense, the most advanced military training complex in the Orion Arm. Around her, cadets of 100 species shimmered, clicked, pulsed, and whispered, a kaleidoscope of flesh, chitin, and energy. And every one of them was staring at the small patch on her shoulder. Earth. Terra Defense Forces. She could feel the laughter before she heard it. A deep, harmonic vibration rolled through the amphitheater. The Zentari cadets, crystalline-bodied and proud, were laughing in their resonant way. Primitive species, one of them chimed, its voice a chorus of bells. Still rely on chemical explosions for propulsion. And projectiles, added a serpentine Uvar, its translucent skin flashing amusement. Kinetic weapons. So quaint. So dirty. Mara kept her posture perfect. She had been warned this would happen. The coalition spanned thousands of worlds. Most species fought their wars with sterile light and silent energy. To them, humanity's old-fashioned reliance on ballistics and blast physics was something between barbarism and comedy. At the podium, Commander Relith Vor, an avian from Vos Prime, spread his sleek wings. "Cadets," he announced, "today begins our inter-world armament exchange. Each delegation will demonstrate their planet's military technologies. Tomorrow, the humans will present theirs." That earned a fresh wave of laughter. A reptilian cadet even hissed, "Do they still use gunpowder?" Mara's jaw clenched. She remembered her grandfather's voice from long ago, gravelly and proud. "They laughed at us before, too." But when the smoke cleared, it was Earth that was still standing. She'd grown up with stories of the Terran Defense Wars, how humans, outnumbered and outgunned, had turned mountains into weapons and craters into shields. She hadn't joined the defense forces to prove anything. But right now, surrounded by mockery, she wanted to. When the assembly ended, a few aliens approached her. A crystalline Zentari tilted its head, studying her like a curiosity. "Lieutenant Decker," it hummed. "Is it true your artillery uses explosions to throw metal through the air?" "That's right," she said evenly. "We throw it very, very accurately." The Zentari's facets glittered in amusement. "How quaint. I look forward to the demonstration. I hope the recoil doesn't break you." They drifted away, laughing again in their bell-like tones. Later that night, Mara stood with her team in the equipment bay. The smell of lubricants and ozone filled the air as humans worked over their massive field guns, the Thunder Lance artillery platforms, each one a masterpiece of human stubbornness and physics. They were sleek in design, but fundamentally old school: barrels, rails, combustion chambers, hydraulic recoil absorbers. Things that kicked when they fired. "Let them laugh," said Sergeant Harlow, wiping grease from his hands. "When they feel the ground move, they'll understand." Mara nodded, looking at the matte black cannon towering before them. Even dormant, it had presence, a machine that didn't hum or glow, but waited, silent and patient, like a predator conserving its energy. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "we remind them what happens when you build weapons to fight gravity itself." The next morning, Mara's unit stood on the firing range's observation platform. Alien cadets filled the stands, glittering under the pale sun of Harton Prime. Commander Relitha's voice boomed over the comms. "Proceed, Lieutenant Decker. The range is yours." She keyed her mic. "Understood, sir. We'll start with a simple demonstration. 1 target. 1 shell." The laughter rippled again, polite this time, but still amused. A few aliens leaned forward expectantly, ready for the punchline. Mara raised a hand to her crew. "Load He Mach 7. Target coordinate Alpha 1." Her voice was calm, almost soft. "On my mark, fire." The first shell leapt from the barrel with a thunderclap that punched the air itself. The sound rolled across the valley like a living thing, deep, raw, ancient. The observation deck shook despite its stabilizers. Alien cadets flinched, some covering their sensory organs. The shockwave hit them a heartbeat later, rattling teeth, rippling energy shields. Far across the range, a reinforced bunker target, solid ferrocrete, built to withstand plasma bombardment, ceased to exist. A hush fell. Smoke curled into the thin air. The only sound was the slow ticking of cooling metal. Mara lowered her hand. "That," she said evenly, "was 1 round." No one laughed. The range of giants. The laughter hadn't returned. By the time Lieutenant Mara Decker and her team rolled their equipment onto the Harton Prime proving range, the alien cadets watched in uneasy silence. The human artillery platforms looked almost archaic compared to the hovering, glowing weapon pods of the other delegations. Theirs were solid, mechanical, scarred from atmospheric burns, rail metal forged to withstand real violence. To the aliens, it must have looked like humanity had dragged fossils to the future. To Mara, it was like bringing gods to judgment. The proving range stretched for 50 kilometers, red dust plains ringed by jagged cliffs. Above, the faint shimmer of the Academy's atmospheric dome kept the alien cadets safe from stray fragments and shockwaves. Commander Relith Vor stood beside her, feathers sleeked back in skepticism. "Lieutenant," he said, "your initial shot yesterday was impressive. But tell me, what tactical advantage is gained by such noise and spectacle? Coalition doctrine values precision energy. Controlled, efficient, bloodless." Mara gave a small smile. "With respect, Commander, we found that noise and spectacle are excellent at ending wars quickly." He blinked, uncertain if she was joking. At 0900, the demonstration began. The other species went first. The Uvar fired an elegant lance of ionized plasma that vaporized a small hill. The crowd murmured in approval. Then the Zentari activated a crystalline oscillator cannon. It emitted a soundless pulse that fractured rock into dust without heat or debris. Relith turned to Mara. "And now, Earth." Her team moved with rehearsed precision. 8 Thunderlance guns locked into firing positions, spreading in an arc across the valley floor. Drones scuttled to deploy target pylons, simulated fortifications, shielded armored vehicles, and decoy drones. Sergeant Harlow's voice came through the comms. "All guns green, ma'am. Ready for fire mission." Mara raised her binocular display. Wind direction, negligible. Gravity, standard. Air density, optimal. The math lined up perfectly, the kind of problem humans had been solving for centuries before warp drives existed. She keyed her mic. "Fire mission, grid 496. Load pattern Alpha 7. Salvo 1, on my mark." Across the valley, the 8 cannons hummed as the ignition systems primed. The alien cadets leaned forward, curious. Mach 8 blasts erupted in near-perfect unison. The sky trembled. The shells arced like molten comets, trailing vapor trails across the dome's horizon. They struck within milliseconds of each other. The ground rippled, not from energy but from raw mass. Dust and debris geysered skyward, scattering into thunderheads. Even through the dome's dampeners, the shockwave made the viewing platforms groan. Aliens flinched, some crying out as their sensory membranes overloaded from the bass vibration that rolled through the earth. When the smoke cleared, a swath of the test range was gone, flattened, pitted, rearranged. Every target had been obliterated, even those behind the artificial ridge meant to simulate cover. A Zentari cadet whispered, voice trembling through its crystalline body, "They threw mountains at us." Mara glanced at Commander Relith. "Energy weapons are fast, efficient, but they're still just light. Light can be bent, absorbed, reflected. You can't bend a half-ton of tungsten moving at Mach 8. He stared at her, feathers bristling in disbelief. "You are telling me your species fights with gravity?" "We fight against it," she corrected. "And we win." For the second phase, the human crew demonstrated time-on-target coordination. Cannons placed miles apart adjusted their firing sequences so that every round struck simultaneously. It required mathematics, intuition, and timing that bordered on art. Mara's team worked wordlessly, slide rules, wrist displays, manual inputs. No AI assistance. Just experience and instinct. Battery 2, correction up 3 mils. Fire when ready. Battery 6, locked and set. Confirm TOT minus 5 seconds. "All guns," Mara commanded, "fire for effect." The world held its breath, and then thunder rolled like a god clearing its throat. The alien spectators gripped railings as multiple impacts converged in a synchronized storm. Shockwaves punched the shields, rattling the stands. Sensors overloaded, the dome flickered. When the last echo died, the range looked like the surface of another planet. Sergeant Harlow muttered. "That'll do." Mara lowered her headset. "End exercise. Secure guns." Afterward, as the cadets filed out in stunned silence, one of the Zentari approached. Its crystalline skin dimmed, a sign of fear among its kind. "Lieutenant Decker," it said quietly, "we laughed because we thought you primitive. But what we saw, that wasn't technology. That was planetary fury." Mara gave a small, tired smile. "That's just physics. We're good friends with it." As she turned away, the alien cadet whispered something to another in its native tongue, a phrase later translated in the Academy archives. "The humans aim at gods." The earth shakes. The range still smelled of smoke and ionized dust. Even with the atmosphere filters running at full power, the scent of scorched soil and pulverized stone lingered, the perfume of Earth's ancient art. Lieutenant Mara Decker stood at the edge of the observation platform, helmet tucked under one arm. Below, the once flat proving ground now looked like a cratered battlefield from humanity's early wars. It was ugly, uneven, and terrifyingly effective. But the demonstration wasn't over yet. The Coalition instructors had scheduled a comparative simulation. Each species would engage identical moving targets, shielded drones, armored constructs, and reinforced bunkers. The aliens would fire first, then the humans. The idea was to measure efficiency, accuracy, and containment. Commander Relith Vor stood beside her, feathers slick with tension. "Remember, Lieutenant," he said carefully, "this exercise is meant for academic comparison. No need for theatrics." Mara's lips curved slightly. "Understood, Commander. We'll stay academic." The first salvo came from the Zentari. Their weapons fired flawless pulses of coherent resonance, invisible waves that disintegrated matter on contact. The targets shattered neatly. Applause followed. Then the Uvar demonstrated their ion cannons, melting bunkers into puddles of glass with surgical precision. More polite approval. Relith turned toward Mara. "And now, Earth's turn. You may begin when ready." She nodded to her crew on the valley floor. "All units, prepare for multi-target engagement. Pattern Bravo Delta. Let's show them what timing feels like." The crew responded like clockwork. Cannons swiveled, hydraulics hissed, targeting data streamed between operators. No AI-controlled networks, no predictive combat algorithms, just human coordination, drilled and perfected over centuries. "Targets acquired," said Harlow over comms. "Distance confirmed. Wind negligible. Set for time on target, 3 waves," Mara ordered. From the viewing deck, the alien cadets leaned forward. They'd heard about this technique in the data briefs, but seeing it in action was something else. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1, fire. The first volley screamed upward, vanishing into the thin blue sky. Seconds later, the second and third volleys followed, each fired at different velocities and angles. For 10 long seconds, nothing happened. A few alien cadets began whispering, wondering if something had gone wrong. Then the sky fell. The first impacts landed, 8 shells slamming into the valley floor in perfect unison. Before the echo could fade, the second wave struck, then the third, each precisely calculated so that all rounds hit within a half-second window. The result was not a series of explosions. It was one continuous earthquake of thunder. The viewing dome shuddered. The stands trembled. The ground itself seemed to breathe. Some of the crystalline Zentari screamed, clutching their chests as harmonic vibrations rippled through their bodies. A group of Uvar dropped to the floor, their translucent skin flashing chaotic colors of panic. Commander Relith staggered, his talons scraping against the railing. "By the stars," he whispered. "You're tearing the planet apart." Mara's voice came through calm, steady, absolute. "Negative, Commander. This is within tolerance." "Barely." The dust cloud rose like a storm front, blotting out the sun. Sensors overloaded. The dome's stabilizers flickered under the seismic pressure. When the echo finally faded, there was silence, the kind that came after something holy or horrifying. Relith turned to her, eyes wide. "That was a controlled demonstration?" "Yes, sir," she said evenly. "We call it discipline under recoil." Minutes later, the haze cleared. The entire target range had been erased. The reinforced bunkers were now just fused glass. The drones had been atomized mid-air. The very shape of the land had changed. New hills, new craters, a geography born in minutes. The alien cadets were pale, trembling, or completely speechless. The laughter, the jokes, even the quiet superiority that had once filled the academy, all gone. Mara keyed her external comms. Her voice echoed across the silent valley. That concludes the Earth demonstration. Thank you for your attention. She paused, letting the words hang heavy in the charged air. We don't fire for beauty. We fire so no one fires back. Relith said nothing for a long time. His feathers rose slightly, an avian gesture of submission. I understand now why your world survived alone for so long, he said quietly. No enemy could stand against this. Mara exhaled slowly, watching the heat shimmer off the wrecked landscape. No, Commander. They stood. Just not for very long. As the human crew powered down the guns and began collecting debris samples, an eerie wind swept through the valley. Dust rolled across glass and stone, whispering like distant thunder. For the first time, the alien cadets didn't look down at the humans. They looked up. Because what they had just witnessed wasn't technology. It was evolution-made weapon. And it had a heartbeat. The silence after thunder. The proving range was still smoldering when dawn broke over Harton Prime. The air carried the faint tang of ozone and scorched minerals. A pale sun rose behind the shattered ridges, catching the metallic gleam of fused glass where valleys had once been. No one spoke. The alien cadets, hundreds of them, stood at the edge of the observation platforms, staring into the silent wasteland that had once been their testing ground. For many, it was the first time they had ever felt fear of a lesser-developed species. And for Lieutenant Mara Decker, it was the first time in her career that silence sounded louder than war. Commander Relith Vor descended the stairs from the control tower. His feathers were dulled with dust and fatigue. He stopped in front of Mara and her team, who were still busy disassembling the Thunderlance cannons, grease-stained, calm, professional. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, when I was told humanity still used chemical propulsion weapons, I imagined smoke and noise. I did not imagine. He gestured toward the ruined valley, lost for words. You moved a continent. Mara looked up from the cannon breach she was inspecting. Just rearranged it a bit, sir. The earth shakes, and we remember how to shake back. That earned her a small, uncertain smile. Not amusement, respect. The first he had ever shown her. Inside the debrief hall, the air felt tense and heavy. The alien cadets filled the benches, subdued and pale. The massive holoscreen displayed before and after imagery of the range, untouched terrain on one side, molten scars on the other. Relith addressed the crowd. The purpose of these exchanges is understanding, he said. Today, we have learned that humanity's weapons are not elegant, but they are absolute. A murmur ran through the hall, half awe, half unease. A crystalline Zentari cadet stood, voice trembling. Commander, the shockwaves harmonized with my core frequencies. Had I been any closer, I would have fractured. How can they control such power? Relith gestured toward Mara. Ask them. Hundreds of alien eyes, some glowing, some faceted, some compound, turned toward her. Mara rose slowly, uniform streaked with soot. We control it, she said softly, because we learned early that power doesn't care who holds it. Fire, gravity, recoil, it all kills without loyalty. So we study it. We respect it. We never forget what happens when we stop respecting it. A stillness settled over the room. Even the energy-based UVAR dimmed their internal glow in silent contemplation. Mara continued, voice steady. You all have your plasma, your resonant cannons, your clean wars fought from orbit. That's fine. But down on the ground, where the wind still carries dust and blood, there's no replacement for physics and willpower. That's where humans live. She paused, letting the words sink in. We don't fight to impress. We fight so we don't have to fight again. Later, as the debrief dispersed, a young Zentari approached her. Its crystalline facets shimmered dimly, humility among its kind. Lieutenant Decker, it said hesitantly, may I study your targeting algorithms? I wish to understand how you predict such perfect impact synchronization. Mara smiled faintly. "It's not just math," she said. "It's experience." Our ancestors looked at the stars and thought, "Let's throw something at that." We've been perfecting the aim ever since. The cadet blinked, processing that for several seconds, then bowed its crystalline head. "Your species is terrifying." "Good," Mara said. "Terrifying things don't get conquered." By nightfall, the human crew had packed their equipment. The cannons were loaded onto the transport freighters, still warm from the day's fury. As the engines powered up, the air hummed with quiet thunder. Mara lingered for a moment, standing at the edge of the range. The glass terrain stretched endlessly before her, reflecting the orange sky like a sea of mirrors. Sergeant Harlow joined her, chewing on a ration stick. "They still watching us?" he asked. Mara nodded. High above, she could see silhouettes of alien cadets at the observation decks, unmoving, still awestruck. Harlow grinned. "Guess they won't be laughing at us anymore." Mara's gaze stayed on the horizon. "They shouldn't. Not because they're scared, but because they finally understand." He frowned. "Understand what?" She exhaled softly. "That every species has its gods. Ours just happened to fire at 1,200 meters per second." As the transport engines ignited, the wind carried the faint echo of their thunder across the scarred valley. The sound rolled through the mountains, low, deep, and endless. In the quiet that followed, the aliens would give that sound a name in their languages. Some would call it the heartbeat of Earth. But among themselves, the humans had another word for it: peace.